Hey, everybody, and welcome to another night of Women's World of Fishing Monday Night Takeover. We're going to give a few minutes for everybody to jump on from the multiple different broadcasts that we're doing. And so before
Mine,
we jump in,
are we live? Because mine's still showing scheduled.
really, yeah, it's showing live on my
Okay.
end.
Huh. Interesting.
Let me double, let me see how. Sorry, everybody, but just bear with us if it's live on your end.
Yep.
Let us check out
Look,
the.
looks like it is. So I don't know why mine still says scheduled, but
Oh,
I
well,
just want to make
hello.
sure.
Hello, everybody, again, and welcome if you're just tuning in. Um, Something happened, and Angie was on a little bit of a delay. Um, but we're going to just give it a minute, make sure that it does go out to everybody like we do every week. And so before we jump into the topic, which will explain about this topic and what we've decided to do. Um, but real quick, Angie, you just got back from somewhere. You want to tell everybody what you've been up to this week?
Yeah, I was up at Lake Erie. Mark One Sport Fishing invited us back up. I was there in the fall to troll for walleye, and this time he wanted to show off casting for walleye. So the bite's usually on fire this time of year, and it was pretty hot. But Lake Erie had a big storm. I don't know if you saw that on social media.
I didn't
It
know.
was it was like a hurricane basically, and kind of messed up the fishing a little bit. But we still had a great time. We still caught a lot of fish, and it
Nice.
was being filmed for Midwest Outdoors, so it's going to be on the TV show. I brought Brittany Howard, who was a guest on my podcast from the band Alabama
Nice.
Shakes, and Dana went up there with me, and Brittany's partner Tiff, and we just had a great time. And
Nice.
so the podcast that I have coming out tomorrow is a recap of that, where I interviewed everybody while we were out on the boat. So that's going to be really fun.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, and
it,
we'll put the link in the description so everybody can check that out. I saw some of the fish you caught.
yeah, and we brought a lot home, so we've got a lot of good eating.
So fish fry at your houseboat.
Yeah, exactly. And we were using all St. Croix rods, so shout out to St. Croix. They actually sent us all brand new rods to take home, which was cool. And
Wow.
Mark was so happy with how it all turned out. He's actually invited us back up next month to cast for smallmouth, which will be really
Nice.
cool. Yeah,
Well, that's
and
amazing that they did that. Way to go, St. Croix.
yeah, and there was an outdoor rider on the boat the second day, and he said, I've been in the fishing industry, I forget how many years, like 40 years or more. And he's like, I have never seen a group cast and fish so hard. I don't even see tournament anglers that hard. They
Hmm.
were all just really impressed with us, which was cool.
Nice. Well, women are competitive. They're very competitive.
Hmm.
So, well, good.
Yeah.
And now you're getting ready to go where? Thank you for taking out the time to still hang out with us tonight because
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna pull all this off, as I always say, but leaving Saturday for Cane River, the next big LBAA tournament. Still have a couple issues to work out on the Key West boat. I was texting with G-Man the other day, and I was like, G-Man, you gotta tell me, do I need a charger on my cranking battery? Because what I'm being told is that the motor charges the battery when you're driving it, and he said yes you do, because it can't fast enough. So I hope they have a charger in stock and we can get that slapped on there before we leave. And then I fixed the trolling motor myself. The belt is still off just a little bit, so I'm praying that that doesn't cause us any issues. It's just loud, but hopefully it is throughout the tournament. And then I'm finally getting some rod straps put on there, which is going to be a game changer for me to not have
nice.
to take my rods out of the locker and waste all that time when I can just leave them on the deck when we run from spot to spot. So looking forward to that big time.
Nice. I'm not going to be there, buddy.
Wah, wah. It's gonna be weird without you.
I know, and it wasn't an easy decision. I knew that I was going to be in this spot. Um, Pretty much. I mean, since we fished the last tournament, but I just didn't say anything to anybody. I was just kind of going back and forth. But I just have things medically that I got to take care of. And so I'm going to set this one out and get stuff taken care of. And I'm still going to be, doing the live, and hopefully, you'll be able to give us a sneak peek as to what's going on. And, I'm going to be cheering you guys on, even if I'm not there. So you guys are my girls.
I'm looking
So,
forward to it. It sounds like there's a lot of lily pads and grass there, which I actually have almost no experience fishing, so I'll be having a lot of learning to do in practice for sure.
yeah, I wonder if anybody's going to throw a frog.
I think there'll be some frogs getting thrown around for sure.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that there probably will be. Maybe just a few. So, okay. I got a couple of questions coming in. Um, do you have anything else before we jump in? Because,
I think that's it. We're also, this is our big trip, the Lance Truck Camper. So we're still got things that we're dealing with on that. Like right now, the left tail light isn't working, and so that's kind of
oh,
important for a trip like yeah. So we're hoping we can get that figured out. We bought contact clean. Hopefully, it's just corrosion or something in the plug. It's not bulb, but I know that. So, it's always something.
right. It's not always going to be. Like you said in the beginning of the year, you figured out really quick. This is kind of like a hash everything out and get it ironed out. And tomorrow and next year,
Wish.
yeah,
Yeah.
pew, it's kind of how this year is going. But next year is going to be when it's just smooth sailing.
That's what I'm in for.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Right. I hope it is for me too. Like I the last couple of years I've thought the next year's like, and then my January just falls apart. So, I'm with you on 22.
We'll get
So,
there.
I know. So, okay. Water temperature. Where do I start with this? When I
Good question.
when I chose this topic, it was actually on the last show that we did is one of the just basic questions when we were doing bed fishing. And when I added it, we were just going to do like a general, answer, go over it, because you can make it a very kind of general seasonal type overview. But no, not really. You can't.
Right.
So I don't when I did that, I don't really know what was in my head when I wrote that down and was like, we can include this in with bed fishing and stuff like that. So, I decided to make it tonight's topic. And then I was like, I don't know why I did this. Because it is, and I'm sure that everybody that's on right now, everybody probably realizes how complicated of a topic this is. So I've compiled some of the questions that I received that came in, and kind of what I had to do, and I was just telling Angie this, is we're going to break it down to where the majority of our audience is, because I I don't think that Aaron Martins and KVD and all of those guys are listening to us on what to do for bass fishing, water temperature. Um, and I'm going to be watching the comments like, what is everybody else doing? Because I sure don't know everything. I was watching videos and taking notes today because I use a very general, like that much of a general, when I'm actually fishing. Um, so that's kind of how we're going to approach it. And anybody, you can still post comments in the different rooms, and we're going to answer everything the best that we can. Um, but we're going to try not to make it too complicated, if that makes sense. Let us know if it doesn't. I
If it's
mean, what
possible.
yeah, I mean, I really just didn't realize how complicated it can be. Like, literally, you can make this like brain surgery. I never knew. So, do you have anything to say, like, and before we start, Angie, as far as, because I'm gonna start at the place I hate the most.
Yeah, you mentioned Aaron Martins, and that's one of the seminars I was watching today, one that he did, and he said that this I could not have picked for the seminar, and he was having a tough time with it. So if that tells you anything, I mean, he knows the stuff. It was just
Right.
trying to communicate it, in a way that made sense and whatnot. And so, yeah, it's not an easy topic for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And that's why I'm gonna start where I hate the most, because you're not gonna find me fishing it.
That's winter time.
Boom. Not gonna see me out there. Um, like, I know a lot of people look forward to the ice coming. Dana, that we have, Minnesota, I know she looks forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
She's a bass fisherman, but she also fishes walleye. And I know we have a lot of people who do that. But when it comes to bass fishing, you know what? I'm perfectly fine under my heated blanket. Let me know when it hits 50 degrees, because that is kind of the magical number, is to when the fish start getting active.
Mm.
I mean, is that kind of what you've known and heard, Angie?
Yeah, so watching with Aaron, he actually started with winter and then went in beyond got inner. So hopefully it works tonight and I don't break up too much or get kicked out like I have. But um, the key for winter temp, also sounded like that 50-degree mark was the number that he mentioned. But the key is that you're really, it's more about looking for bait fish than it is the bass. And in the winter time when that colder water temp, they're trying to eat more and trying to like bulk up a little bit, and he said crawfish are key in the wintertime because they'll still eat shad, but crawfish is what they're really going after. So he said if you can find the crawfish, you'll find the bass, and that's kind of the key. Um, Steeper banks hold kind of look those steep banks or bluff falls.
Mhm.
Um, the main current, find clear water, warmer creeks. That's what you're looking for in the wintertime to try to find some active bass.
And I mean, and that does make sense, because on sunny days they would, I would think, move up into some rocks that might hold some heat, or something like that. And I know that one of the things that I saw is, and it's hard for me to think that a bass can calculate this in their head, but they kept saying energy in equals energy out. So if they see a crawfish over there, they're that they would be thinking, well, that's too much. That's going to cost me too much energy to go to that one. So I'll wait until another one's here closer to me.
Hmm.
And that's just, I mean, and that's just hard for me to believe that, you know, that it can be that scientific for these fish. But I mean, I can't dispute that. But I mean, we're talking about a fish,
I
you know,
guess it's just a natural instinct that they have.
and I mean, that's all that it can be is that, we interpret it to mean energy in equals energy out, but it's something, just like you said, that's just innate for them. And,
Mhm.
and it sounds to me like you literally have to drop something on their head, you know. Um, but they were talking about catching fish in 34-degree water. Like, so it can happen.
Mhm.
I've seen them bring bass up through the ice.
Right?
That makes
Yeah.
me not happy, but so um somebody it just says Facebook user caught a 5-pounder last winter on a jerk bait. I've That's actually one of the baits that um going into late winter, early spring, a jerk bait's recommended that I've heard. But this just not my time. Um I know that when it's like in the mid 40s, I've been on the water. I I've never done super good when it's been that cold, but I've definitely noticed people who have done really well, they do fish fairly slow. Even when they
Mhm.
fish, even if they fish like something moving like the rattle traps or the spinner baits or the chatter baits, they're yo-yoing them. Like they're fishing it differently than how I would fish them. You know what I mean? Like it's just it is a whole new world for me. So, are you Angie?
I'm still
Oh, okay. You're like pausing and cutting in and out, so I don't know.
struggling.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, it's my internet.
I don't mean to cut you off if I am. You're like pausing, and so I don't know if you're
All good.
okay. Somebody else on Facebook said cold water when I fish for bass, smaller hair jigs is. I'm not sure who this is. There's no name, but I'm wondering, is that like what they use for like striper fishing? Only it's a big hair, like real hair jig that you're talking about, because
Trying to find who that is.
they use those on Lake Cumberland a lot for striper. And
Was a
somebody's
hatchet like Normandy uh, of Nashville versus Tennessee walleye with Pete.
okay. Hmm. And somebody prefers winter over spring.
Interesting.
A wacky rig and a jig. If it's warm, I'll throw a lizard, Texas rigged, or a weightless fluke. Those are good choices too. Well, we're gonna jump to early spring because there we go. Oh, isn't this just comfortable right here? Okay, early spring. This is when the bass start getting active. So for, you know, people who are newer and getting into bass fishing, you know, this is not swimming water, but this is going to be when you start seeing, like, if you have polarized glasses, you're going to start seeing fish move around. You're going to start seeing some bait fish move around. It's like the lakes or the ponds or whatever it is that you're fishing, it's almost like it starts to come to life. I mean, was that kind of how you would see it just on an observation level, Angie?
For sure, yeah. When temps are rising, it just causes them to start to get active in the early spring. What makes it tough is sometimes still fluctuating. So then sometimes we have those temperature drops, and then it kind of the and slows everything back down.
Right.
Not usually immediately, but as that the water temp is fluctuating up and down. So um, somebody said war eagles. Agree with that. I love the war eagle. But but yeah, you're absolutely right.
War eagle. Yes, hair jigs are great for striper fish. I'm Cumberland. I'm 3 hours from there. I wonder if that's Judy because I was actually thinking about Lake Cumberland and her and I talk about Cumberland a lot. But hi, Judy, if that's you. If it's not, then whoever you are, I'm a Lake Cumberland person too. But uh, once the water temperature does hit that 50 degrees, if like I totally agree with you, Angie, like it can go back and forth and do all kinds of different things, that will mark like knock it off of that. But I definitely think, oh, hello, Matt Dillon. Well, welcome to the show. I'm not sure, I've never met you before, but welcome to the show. You'll have to send me a message later about
And
Cumberland.
Matt's a great supporter of women and fishing. So thanks for watching,
Nice.
Matt.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm about 3.5 hours from Cumberland. um, sorry, I digress. If well, do I got sorry. The when when you start fishing that 50 to 60 degrees, there was so much information for that, just for that block of time, because like that's when fish not only are getting active, but they're in that pre-spawn. Like they're starting to go into all kinds of different stages. And one of the reasons, I mean, I love bed fishing. If I'm not in a tournament, I'll stay on one bed for 4 hours because it gets personal for me. But, the one of the things that I thought was interesting was that 50 degrees, the when it's below that, that one guy said that there's such a big decrease in the ability for bass to like perform as far as growth and the ability to put on weight or anything. And the 50 degrees to 84 degrees is their optimal. And then at 84 degrees and above, it's basically the same difficulties as it, with it being that cold. So that 50 to 84 is is the best big range. So it's taken that through a lot of the different seasons.
Hmm.
But if you're wanting to catch a big fish, one of those big pre-spawn females, this is where you want to look. And de- it really depends on where you live. You know, I live in northern Kentucky, so I'm looking most years between mid March to mid April, sometimes the end of April. What would you be looking at, Angie?
It's probably pretty close to that. It depends on what the winter was like. If it was cold winter, a lot of that shifts to a little bit later. In we had some pretty cold weather this winter, so
Mhm.
the year being so crazy, to get out there and have a boat and all that. So yeah, winter is just affects the.
Hello, Angie? Did we lose you, Angie? Okay, I think we lost Angie. Her internet has not been doing good for her. Um, so I'll wait for her to sign back on. So the 50 to 60 degree mark, for me, I I like fishing slow during that time. That's when I will get out my Texas rig. I like to start off the spring like that. I usually don't start throwing my moving baits with any consistency until it starts hitting, I would say, probably closer to 60 degrees. And I will be looking for bedding fish all the way up through there. But I really like to look in the shallows. Oh, gosh, sorry, that scares me every time she does that. Welcome back.
Thanks for
Uh,
internet
I was
options. This is any better.
I was just saying how the closer to 50 degrees that it is, like I prefer to start off at those lower temperatures with like my Texas rig, and I don't start throwing my moving baits until we're getting up close to the 60 degrees. And so, but I'm going shallow. I'm looking for warm water. And I think that
Hmm.
that's pretty standard for most people at this point in time. Most people are going to look for shallow pockets, for shallow creeks, transition places on lakes. And part of why we were just like, oh gosh, this can get so complicated. Like, this can get as complicated as we can make it, is because, y- you know, when we're generalizing and saying most people do this, we can say like, well, for lakes that are murky or lakes that are deep or lakes that, or ponds or rivers, like everything fishes so different, or in different parts of the country versus the north or the south. The north, that they don't have to worry about their water temperatures getting to 90 degrees. So that's why it's just like, okay, everything can get really complicated. So we are going to use the generalizations as far as a typical majority lake. And most people and most places, I think, are going to be looking for those transition places. Um, and those places are going to be rocks that hold heat, because at this, you're wanting warm water. You want to find some place that's going to warm the fastest. And that's where bass are going to go. I mean, that's how I've always fished in the spring. I mean, what do you think, Angie?
Yeah, absolutely. Sunny banks for shade banks, something to pay attention to. Look for those nice sunny banks, and
Mhm.
sometimes even the warmer water to one side of the lake. So that always want to be, as you're boating, look and watch water temp changes as you move
Mhm.
about the lake.
Mhm. Let me see. As far as like baits, I would say that in this 50 to 60 degrees, I would say, like, I mean, like you were saying, Angie, for the winter, I mean, I would say that creature baits, I mean, really anything mimicking, a crawfish, anything like that. Ned rigs, Nico rigs, um, any of those plastics. And I would say fishing them fairly slow around cover, rocks, and rattle traps and red color. Do not, in the springtime, don't forget your reds, your oranges. Um, and I don't know if this is anywhere but in Kentucky, but pink is a good color on Lake Cumberland. So for big spotted bass.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah, I don't
think
know.
square bill too are really good.
Mhm. I forgot about that. That is true.
Aaron Martin said shock blades like main jigs and drop shots as well.
Drop shots. I saw Edwin Evers when he caught like an 8 pounder on a drop shot, and it was the last thing he threw at it.
Huh, nice.
Okay. Let me see if. Okay, so we're going to move past early spring, because usually I mean, that transition, most places is going to go fairly quick. So, okay. I love this part. This is gonna be where where the fish are going to spawn the majority of the time, and it is usually gonna be on the full moon when the water temperature is in this range. So for me, I'm going and I'm looking for them on the bed. And I'm not going to, in a tournament, I'm going to analyze, are they catchable? And that's how I'm going to figure it out. Um, we addressed it 2 weeks ago as far as what we use and all that stuff. So we don't have to go over that. That other bait, though, was a Jimmy Frog, that really little tiny one. And I couldn't think of the name of it by Big Sexy Baits, if you remember. It's a Jimmy Frog. But so the with this, you're gonna have fish that are still feeding up for the spawn, fish that are on the beds, or the females that are waiting to come onto the beds, and fish that are finishing up the spawn. So you really have your choice as to what do I want to fish for. Um, and that's really going to dictate how you fish. I mean, don't you think, Angie? And that's a tough decision.
Yeah, like I keep going back to the meant, just trying to figure out some on the beds. We saw them in all those different transitions and which one you have the greatest.
Well, and I mean, I think that when they are in all of the stages, I think that it can actually make it tougher, you know, because sometimes it's hard to tell. I mean, you have certain tells, like, okay, this tail is bloody. So that male either came off of the bed, he recently came off of the bed. Like, you can kind of gauge what he was doing, where he came from, or if it's a female that is thinner and beat up, like she'll have scars or something on her from loosening up the eggs. Like, y- there are some tells for that. But sometimes it's hard to tell exactly where they came from in the transition. And sometimes you can't really pick and choose which you would rather target. And I would much rather catch the pre-spawn females, but they're the toughest to catch. So how do you zero in on those all day long in a tournament?
Um, During this time, I think is when they're most cold. My back. Hear me?
You cut Yeah, you cut out like really, really bad. I didn't hear anything.
We'll try this again. See, it just keeps popping in. I don't know what's going on. It's been bad. But this time that we're about right now is when I think the fish are most affected by water another time. So in the morning, it's going to be colder out. Have as good of a in the morning, and that's kind of different than what. Right. Be back.
And what?
I said I think I might be back. No, if you so
No, I still didn't hear you.
no.
Oh, that well, yeah, it like comes
All right.
back in for a second.
You lead the way, and I'll just.
Okay. I did hear the part about the, in the morning it's going to be cooler, um and stuff like that, and I mean that is a good point, for the in the 60 to 70, 75, that's a comfortable, temperature for the fish. Like that is an area where they thrive. And so um with that increase in activity and stuff, that's a good also for top water. Um you should be able to get some hits on top water, and there is no better way. Nothing that's more fun than catching them top water. I've never heard somebody say, "Well, I hate to catch them top
Sure.
water."
Funny.
But I had gone to the pond today, just for a couple of hours because I just had to go. And my GoPro died, and I was throwing a whopper plopper, and I threw it out, and when it hit the water, my GoPro died, and I finally caught a fish on a whopper plopper on that cast.
Oh, nice.
So I'm just like, well, that figures. No proof.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of comments down here. I know that answer. I can't tell you. That's a secret, but I do have a pack of pink worms, secret stuff that works. Sorry. Is that Matt talking to me about Cumberland?
Trying to see.
He ain't gonna tell me nothing about Cumberland I don't already know. I'm totally kidding. Yes, Matt Dillon, Cumberland. So if let me know, Angie, if anybody says anything about the 60 to 70, 75. Um, because I love to crankbait fish. I love to um obviously topwater fish, and this water temperature range is really going to let you choose how you want to fish. You're going to be able to catch fish fast, slow, medium. Now, but keep in mind, there's a lot of other factors to keep in mind when it comes to fishing. It's not like you're going to go out and slay them every single day just because it's spring and the water temperature is 60 to 75. Like that just means that you're in the period of this is the most comfortable water for a bass. These are the most like I don't even know the word. Like sometimes I just have contempt for them because like I love bass fishing, but if it wasn't as I guess if it wasn't so much of a puzzle, I don't think I would be as addicted to it. I think it's because it's so tough that that's what drags me back to it, if that makes sense. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had a few more big ones, and I wish I had a double digit under my belt, which I don't. But there are a lot of factors between this same water temp right here. I'll just name a few. Cold fronts, huge. Pam Horn brought up barometric pressure. Um, that is that is a huge factor that's going to go into from winter all the way through back around to winter. Barometric pressure, I think, is always going to have an impact on fishing, and that's something that's different from day to day. So you can have perfect conditions, but changing barometric pressure can throw everything off.
Get forecast the of tools.
The what?
The we have apps that you forecasts
Oh, okay.
metric pressure, like Weather Underground.
Yeah. And I mean, eh, I guess like the thing is like there I do the does everything ever line up perfectly in bass fishing? You know what I mean? Like I don't know that that ever happens. You know what I mean? Like okay, the barometric pressure is right where it's supposed to be, the water temperature's where it's supposed to be, you know, they're all on this point because I'm here. It just seems like there's always just something that's just a little bit off. And that's but that's just typical. And but when you are in this area, the that 60 to mostly 70, you are still in a really good area to get you a big girl. And once you start moving out of this area, um, now they're going to start getting out deep. Um, this is going to be when it's starting to get a little uncomfortable for them to be up shallow all the time. And this this water temperature right here, they're comfortable shallow. It's fun to catch them shallow. You know, they might be on that very for like if they're up shallow, you might not see them. If you got good glasses, you might. But that very first drop off just out of view, they're going to be there. They're going to be there waiting for something to eat. When it moves out of here, this is going to be the Thermocline. I actually got a question on that. I wonder if that's I wonder if that's Jessica. If that's you, Jessica, I'm going to get there because this is where the Thermocline comes into place. I'm going to get there.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
I was trying to see who I.
Because
Oh,
this is
I
where
can't
the
get it to stop.
Thermocline's in place.
That's funny. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Horn is on, by the way.
Who? Oh, hello,
Pam Horn.
hello, Pam. So this right here, this is where they're gonna move out and they are going to go and find some cooler water. They're not going to be able, they're not going to have the oxygen content that they need up shallow. They're not going to have the the comfort that they have. There's going to be plenty of food for them up there, but we're also getting up to where I was talking about that 84 degrees. You know, they don't their metabolism is really high, but they have to be careful with the amount of exertion that they use too. And so did they say if who that was about the thermocline?
It, it was Matt Dillon.
Oh, it's me, Matt. What do you mean? What's my name? I'm Barbara, Matt. It's nice to meet you. So, when they do this, there is a term like he was saying that is called the thermocline. And this is one of the terms that it is important, but it's it's also something to where it's kind of taking the the it's taking it to a more complicated level. If you're not tournament fishing, if you're not, worrying about, I guess, competitive fishing or getting to that level, if you're just out pond fishing, with your family or something like that, then you don't even have to worry about this. I mean, this is something that is, I had never even heard about it until I had been fishing competitively probably for like a decade. But the thermocline is where about 99% of the bass are going to be above the thermocline. And that is going to be where the water is the most comfortable for them. So in the summer, it could be 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet, 35 feet. If you're out in California and the water's gin clear, it just depends on the impoundment. But you can find that on your electronics by turning up the sonar, the way, way, way up on the sensitivity, and it will actually draw a line showing you where the thermocline is. And it just draws a big blue line. I don't, that's how it is on mine. Is that how it is on yours, Angie?
I'm still learning mine.
Oh,
I've
that's
not
right.
gotten to the point where
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, you haven't even had it in the summer. That's right. um, but if when you see it on there, you'll notice that most of the bait fish and the other fish, they're always going to be above that thermocline. And what is said is that focusing on that level and 5 feet above that level is where the majority of the fish catches will be. Like that's going to be your best area. I've never really worried about it all that much because I don't do any offshore fishing. I'm never out way deep off of a point, or like that's not my strong point yet. And what?
I just said that's the key, yet.
Right. Hopefully. But it is something that if you learn how to exploit that, it could, I mean, that's huge. Robbie Hartline with her electronics and doing that, I, she is tough in the summer. So,
Mm.
sorry, I was
There's
just
a great
catching up.
there's a YouTube called Fish. I forget the name. That's kind of his strong suit is offshore. So if you really want a lot of good chin, get better at offshore fishing, that's a great channel to check out. I think his
Yeah, what is it?
I think his name is on. If you just search for Fish the Moment on YouTube, you'll
Oh, I'm subscribed to that.
yeah.
Fish the moment. but I'm going to put that in the description for us so everybody can, because that is a good channel, and that's for electronics.
But a lot of electronics and
Hmm.
just
Yeah, because I think that anybody, wanting to learn that, I mean, you have to take in a lot of knowledge for it and then be able to take it all onto the water and implement it. And it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I watched videos all winter long on electronics, and I can't go out there and just do and do whatever I want, you know? So I mean, it's a lot. But one thing that I definitely want to point out about this summer thing, this is going to be when your low light conditions are going to be optimal. So this is going to be, the morning bite, the late evening bite, for top water and stuff like that, because they're going to have a feeding pattern before the sun comes up, and and all of that. And on sunny days, any shade you can find, and again, unless you have gold somewhere out in the middle of the lake, look for your shady spots. That is going to be huge. That is for people who do fish along the banks. When the water gets hot, if you can find overhanging trees, docks, um, I just thought of Pam Ridgel when I said both of those. But
skipping that bait.
right. Um, but any kind of shade. I mean, there is always going to be a percentage of bass that are gonna be shallow. I mean, there just is. There's always gonna be bass that are shallow. Um, and they're gonna be in that shade when it gets hot. They're gonna be in the shade. They're not gonna be out in the middle of the sun roasting. They'll be in the shade where it's a little bit cooler and where they can ambush prey. I mean, that's what they do. And that is the biggest like piece of advice that I could give you if you are casting towards the bank in the summer conditions. um I mean,
My lake, my lake, it's very rocky, and so I
oh,
found is find some good or little dark areas in between the rock. The time be down there in those cracks where it's staying cooler. So
nice.
favorite area for me.
Nice. I see.
Hmm.
I've never been on Percy Priest. I don't know. I don't know. I thought it had. Does
It'll
it not?
get prop, that's for sure.
Let's see. Um, for our competitive bass anglers, this is so important, and I am going to end up doing probably like a whole page, because I know it's going to be probably controversial. And so I know that I've got to have the statistics to back it up, but I really want us to cover it. But bass fishing care, because I had no idea that fish mortality was as high as it was. Um, did like I know that in the summer months, bass death in live wells is a lot higher, but I did not know that fish mortality was higher after fish are released healthy. Did you know that, Angie?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't either.
I did an episode with Darren from Donkey, who made tournaments. I know I'm cutting in and out again, but Fish Donkey, the app, you
Oh,
don't have you can just use the, and we talked a lot about my podcast.
the last thing I heard was talked on the podcast.
On, sorry, my internet is, try this again. We on my podcast very early on about the mortality, and he had some studies and whatnot. So
I mean, I, like I said, I knew that with them being in the live well and uh, the stuff like that, like I knew the special fish care and stuff like that had to be a certain things had to be done, and the things that we can do as tournament anglers, what we can do to take care of our fish in the live well so that we can get them safely to the weigh-in and release them healthy. What I didn't know was that even if we get them to the weigh-in and they of in all appearances are healthy, I didn't realize that there is still a fair number of fish that pass away up to 3 days later
mm-hmm.
because of that. And um so I just kind of wanted to talk about, just fish care in general, and um things that we can do, maybe where the sport is going in the future, because we are seeing a shift in the sport of bass fishing. And and I think that there's just a lot of things that are going on, and maybe things are going to be shifting completely because of this. So um so I definitely want to address that as just a general, how we need to take care of the fish the best that we can, just for the I mean, for the fish, for the sport of it. And, that's if we're doing the best that we can, that's all we can do. But we definitely need to do everything that we can do, you know. Um and I've seen a lot of people out on the water that that definitely, and I'm not talking about people that I know. I'm just talking about people just randomly out there where I'm like, "You want me to take it off the hook for you and release it?" But, I don't know. You know, we we are we are advocates for the fisheries and stuff like that. So,
Poor.
what uh uh
I'm over it.
Oh, bless your heart. It's gonna get better. Okay, just real quick, the last one we have. early fall. Again, this
Mhm.
is actually once we get when people are like over the summer because most of us most of us can't find the fish, then fall starts to come, and this is when the water temperature starts to fall again, and everybody's like, "Oh, yes, the bass are feeding. Let's go out." But this is more about, I mean, they're really chasing the bait. So it's, yeah, it's about water temperature, but it's also more about what is the bait doing,
So it's
and
like a lot like what Aaron said in the winter fish.
mhm. Yeah, because like I know it, and I'm sure Matt can attest to this too, but at Lake Cumberland, like 2 decades ago, we used to nighttime striper fish all the time, and it was a blast. But then they started stocking alewives as the primary bait or little, yeah, bait fish. And it's primarily a deep water bait fish. And the one thing with them is instead of coming to the top of the water at night, they spawn in the top of the water column in the fall. So now instead of getting our summertime, nighttime top water, now we get fall time, daytime topwater striper fish
Hmm.
because they follow the bait fish, you know. That's striper fishing, but it can also depend on how the bait fish are relating to their natural, environment in that time of year. If they're supposed to be reproducing and spawning, and the bass can just be following them to do whatever they're supposed to do, you know, and they're going to feed up because they're preparing for winter. And, like we already talked about, you know, they don't stop eating in the winter, but they are gonna, instead of eating a bunch of small meals, they're gonna have, one big one, and they're gonna sit there and think about whether or not it's worth eating. So they're preparing for that. And then we should all just stop fishing until the water temperature hits 50. So there. And that
It's
is water temperature bass fishing right there. That's all you need to know. I mean, that is it, like at a very, very like Barbara level. you know, um, but it really can be so much more complicated than, I mean, Angie. I mean,
oh
gosh,
yeah,
we could have thrown so many more factors in there. Like, oh, this could happen, because it bass fishing is
it
tough.
could.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, bass fishing is tough, but if you stick to those generalizations, it it really will help you to know, what the targets are. If there are certain things that you like to do, certain, ways you like to fish, if you do concentrate on those specific targets, when you're wasting your time, and maybe when you're not. Um, there are some big fat females that are weighed in the wintertime. I mean, there are.
mm,
I won't catch them then.
get
you know,
there.
but it's a definitely it's a tough sport, but it's worth it when you finally figure them out. It just is really tough to get there, and none of us know it all. So, well, what'd you say, Angie?
as learning.
Mhm. I am too, and I've been fishing my whole life. I don't have it all figured out. I never will. I think it is an ever changing, Dana, Minnesota had posted about about it's we're always thinking about our baits, the baits, the lures and stuff like that, but we're never really thinking about stuff like what we're doing our show on right now. You know what I mean? Like, as far as actually learning,
Right.
like, we'll sit there and we'll watch videos on the next best lure or the next best whatever, but we don't take time to really study these environmental factors or things that really impact the moods of the fish. And, you know, and that is a really good point because the the fish are going to eat at some point, but I don't know. It's a lot. And we focus on like a lake today, and I'm thinking of it from the perspective of I'm standing on a boat and I have electronics. Um I'm trying to work towards our series of fishing for beginners because I still have, a lot of questions coming in for that. So I know that people are looking for that to start fairly quickly. So I will probably do that in the near future. Um, so I mean, I maybe Angie, when you get back from Cane River, maybe we'll go ahead and start that because we're like, because a lot of like, like we're a lot of the things I know that even perspective of this, I'm I'm doing it like from my perspective from a boat. And I know that there are several people that aren't fishing from a boat. And I don't want to leave that group out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, something we got time to think about it. So, anyway,
Yep.
everybody have a great night, have a great week. You can still submit any questions, comments anywhere to one of us on social media or to the official email, which is women's world of fishing at gmail.com. Um, everybody be safe. Have a great week. And Angie, you and Dana be careful heading to Cane River, and good luck on your first day of official practice. Actually, your first two
Thank you.
days.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, be careful, be safe. Tell all of my friends and your friends hello. And
I will.
yeah, just keep me updated and everything. And um, yeah, we'll just chat soon. And everybody else, we'll talk next week.
All right.
Good night,
Night,
everybody.
everyone. Thank